Hi everyone, welcome to FilmDirt. I'd love to now talk about a great film that has passed me by until now. It's The Town. Directed by, starring in and co-written by Ben Affleck, with other great members of the cast. I'm sure you all know the story. It's based on a book called Princes of Thieves. It's about a group of bank robbers and things get pretty complicated. I think that's an understatement. The basic story here where the main criminal falls in love with the main witness. I'm sure that's been done before. I can't remember what story I may have seen. It was something many years ago, but this story in itself is told brilliantly. And I do like that the film mainly concentrates on the life of the criminals, whereas possibly similar stories in the past would concentrate more on the police trying to gather evidence, speaking to witnesses and making the story unfold that way. But we only really have short glimpses. We see the main witness being questioned, brilliantly played by Rebecca Hall, absolutely fantastic, and John Hamm as well in those scenes, brilliant. But then we mainly come back to Ben Affleck and Jeremy Renner, Blake Lively and other group as well, all brilliant, too many names to mention, and they're all crucial to the story and play a big part in the overall story, which, as I said, gets really complicated. Pete Postlethwaite as well, with his input on the childhood of Ben Affleck's character. I think Pete Postlethwaite is always a great actor in everything he does, and what a great addition to this cast. And like I alluded earlier, the whole cast in this film, all brilliant and all fit their roles. This is a dangerous town. You wouldn't want to be here, and all of these actors in their roles all look like they belong here. They're not actors, they're actual inhabitants of this town. So while we mainly get the criminals' point of view and their relationships with each other, we also get to see that the girls are more attracted to bad guys than good guys. There was a short scene where she was being questioned in a bar by John Hamm's FBI agent, but she's not going for it. She's definitely with Ben Affleck's character. I don't know if she suspects at this point that, what connection he has with the case, but the way it unfolds is acted brilliantly. I really love those tense moments where at the cafe and Coughlin turns up and he's got his tattoo in plain view for the world to see, and his girlfriend to definitely see if she's paying attention. And also the password she kind of gave during the stakeout phone call with the FBI in her apartment. He knew at that point not to come to the apartment, and I thought that was played out brilliantly. There's so much of this film which is very, very clever. Now, I have seen both versions of the film. I'm not going to concentrate too much on the theatrical cut because I hear that's pretty much superseded by the extended cut, which I think is great. It's 2.5 hours, I believe. What a great version of the film. Absolutely fantastic. That's the one I watched first. And then I came back to watch the alternate cut with the ending that more closely resembles that of the book. And I prefer the alternate ending. I think it kind of makes more sense when you think of the bigger picture, especially when you really get into the nuts and bolts of what they've done wrong and the actual crimes they committed. Ben Affleck didn't deserve to live and build a new life at the end of this. And does it kind of allude that he knew he was on the way out as well? Possibly. The additional scene where he goes back and meets the guy whose apartment he broke into, that was completely avoidable, I felt, but it seems like that was the final act, wasn't it? That was his get out card. He knew he was going to die at that point and he had to go out with a bang. And then the subsequent stashing of the money for both of the female characters. I think winds up the story much neater than staring out into the sunset at the end, which just seems a sugary, saccharine way of ending such a tight thriller with a lot of tension throughout. I feel the alternate ending just fit the story so much better, and it will probably be the go-to version I put on in the future. There is a lot of tension throughout the film, and it's really well stitched together, and it just seems to flow effortlessly. And I was gripped with every scene. There was a lot of scenes where it did get complicated, but it eventually, made sense with the next scene that came, and why that little thread was necessary. Ben Affleck has really become a superb filmmaker, and this was back in his early directing career, I believe. I think wasn't it his second movie he directed? And he's just become a really good filmmaker. I saw one other film he directed, Argo, and I saw that over lockdown for the first time as well, and I really enjoyed it. When you haven't seen a good film for a long time, then you see one great film, which was that one, and it just opens your eyes, and it's just such a joy to see, instead of all of the manufactured films, and it seems like flat pack off the shelf, stereotypical films that I think we've all become a little bit sick of, especially with all these superhero films coming out. And the One Odd Film is such a gem, and it's just pure joy that we've discovered them. So I'll cover Argo at a later time for sure. I'd love to revisit and talk about that film again. And this one is just as good. Wondering why they went with the original ending, when I'm sure Ben Affleck in his position was able to choose the ending he wanted to include, which in my mind should have been the alternate cut. I haven't researched into what version he prefers, but I'm just wondering why there's two versions. And the alternate cut was the original ending that, played out in the book. So maybe there was a reason for the theatrical ending, but it just wasn't as strong as the alternate ending, for me anyway. And I just wanted to touch on the cinematography as well, which I think looked great. And it was quite dark throughout and grainy in some scenes. It wasn't a flashy, stylistic thriller. One of those really great films that you can just follow from start to finish, and the 2.5 hours just fly by. And fully deserving of my 5 stars, that I think is completely justified. So once again, thanks for joining me. And join me again for another movie chat. You can do that by subscribing so that I pop up in your feed, and I'd love it when the same group of regulars return. It was great speaking to you. All the best and take care.